Good evening. How is everybody? Usually I am talking in the morning, and today I'm talking in the evening because we are going to have adult bedtime stories read by me. Now, after I put that out there into the world, I realized that quite possibly people thought that I would be reading adult-themed stories, as in like bodice ripping, like pornography. Alas, I am not. However, if someone would like me to read some kind of bodice ripper, I could probably oblige. Megan, oh, I love you. Hi, Megan. Thank you. Here's what I did. Usually in my morning chats, I do not have makeup on. I do not have my hair done. I'm not in some bougie wrap, but today I am. And so I'm sitting here drinking, and we're going to start, hey! And I'm going to read on Tenterhooks. I'm not going to read the whole thing. It's a short read, and it's women's fiction. And I thought I would just go ahead. I love reading my work out loud. It makes me fun. Just makes me excited. So let's start. On Tenterhooks, a novella by me, Elizabeth Rago. So listen in if you want. If you don't, that's fine too. Chapter 1, August 8th, 2010, Chicago. Oh my God, it's really hot, Lucy Mathers thought, her damp fingers struggling to grip the leather handle of her handbag. Sweat trickled down her chest, pooling in her flushed, freckled skin beneath her underwire bra. Her high heel wobbled in between the bricks of the cobblestone street. Walking in heels in this neighborhood was never easy. Lucy was a depressed job hopper and a closet history buff, but most of the time she was a scared little girl. She knew people thought she was a flake at times, especially when she willingly put herself in embarrassing situations. Her recipe for professional failure was simple. Get job, make poor decisions, quit job. It happened over and over and over again over the last 6 years, and Lucy was no longer excited by her so-called adventurous spirit. The burst of energy that new situations used to bring was now exhausting. Always bored and never content, Lucy took impromptu trips overseas with the money her parents left her, which provided her with a disposable income that the average 20-something didn't have. She was a spoiled adult, never wanting for anything and never motivated enough to get her life together. Lucy blamed her parents each time her life turned to shit and was convinced they were selfish to die on her when she was only 11. Lucy felt warm perspiration drip down to the tight waist of her nylons. She hated nylons. Year after year, despite how much form-fitting clothes flattered her figure, she felt choked to death by them. Then her accessories started to asphyxiate her, and now these damn nylons. Pausing mid-step, Lucy contemplated taking them off in a nearby alley. Instead, she leaned up against a brick building beside her and dropped her purse to the ground. Squatting, Lucy hoisted the nylons farther up her tiny waist. Her bag tipped over, dropping a small sketch pad to the ground. Pictures of random tall buildings, ranunculus, and hummingbirds stared up at her, a reminder that a creative person still lived on inside her. Finishing her hosiery adjustment, Lucy leaned over to pick up her sketches and stuffed them back in her purse. Stumbling a little, she quickly stood upright, regaining her balance on her 3-inch heels. A truck rumbled by, kicking up the smell of rotting trash from a nearby dumpster. Decaying takeout filled her nostrils, and she could taste putrid bananas. A miserable accident, that's what she felt like in this moment, useless and lost. Lucy knew if she could just walk one more block to her best friend's work, she might not kill herself that day. Claire, the owner of CC's Salon, was a light in her hopeless life and always had been from the time they were prepubescent girls, loving each other despite their pimples and skinny arms too long for their awkward bodies. The cell phone in her purse chimed and vibrated repeatedly, announcing the "I'm sorries" and "please call me backs" of her morning. An hour earlier, she'd walked in on her boyfriend with another woman who just so happened to be a coworker. Lucy pulled the phone from the side pocket of her bag and threw it with all her might against the wall of the bungalow in front of her. The sensation of destroying something felt fantastic, and her right eyebrow rose in delight at the sound of the glass shattering on the sidewalk. Turning the corner onto State Street, Lucy deliberately pushed the door of CC Salon a little too hard. It bounced off the wall with such force that it shook a nearby shelf, throwing handmade hairpins to the ground. A small waif-like receptionist with neck tattoos and hot pink lipstick gasped at the sight of Lucy and in silence pointed to the back of the salon. A woman with rollers in her hair sat in a black leather swivel chair and watched, wide-eyed, as Lucy made her way to the back room. 3 dark velvet chocolate-colored drapes separated the salon into thirds, and Lucy pushed headfirst into the section that housed Claire's workstation. Claire wasn't there, which made Lucy want to throw something again. She was convinced that Claire was the only thing separating her from suicide. "Claire," Lucy exclaimed with her eyes closed. "Claire!" She felt a soft, warm hand on her shoulder, and right behind it the smell of lavender. "What happened?" Claire's voice was just enough to dismantle the emotional bomb about to explode inside of her. Lucy reached up and clenched her hair in her palm. "Cut it off," she grumbled. Chapter 2. Dainty described Claire Culpepper. This is why this is live, and it's real. Dainty described Claire Culpepper the best. Petite, with a little bit of hip, her grandmother said. Claire hated her slightly prominent rear and thighs, but Granny's response was always the same. "Better to have a big butt than a flat butt, dear." Claire wished she could be a happy-go-lucky girl. 7 years of therapy and a consistent flow of meds had resulted in a bit of peace, but Claire longed to have a feeling of harmony in her everyday life. A single mother, her 7-year-old son Evan always seemed to bring a smile to her face, despite her constant exhaustion. Claire, Evan, and their Weimaraner, Huey, lived in a small flat above her pinup-style boutique, CC Salon. Her morning commute was a 10-second descent down the back stairs of the building. This morning, Claire had a 2-page to-do list nagging in her mind and desperately needed to get it down on paper. The longer she kept her thoughts to herself, the faster she would slip into an anxiety attack. Flipping through her daily journal, a suggestion made by her therapist years ago to help Claire maintain control over her hyperactive brain, she found no more blank pages on which to dump her ideas. Pressing the brew button on the coffee maker with one hand, Claire opened a nearby cabinet with the other and found a fresh notebook. She was proud of her ability to multitask, even though her therapist discouraged Claire's obsession with being busy. Claire heard the front door collide with the wall behind it and cursed the delivery guy for always forcing the door open. Cracking the binding of a new notebook, Claire leaned up against the countertop and let her thoughts spill out onto the page. Number 1. Pay bills. Number 2. Update website. Number 3. Pick up meds. Figure a way to get off the meds. Number 4. Make extra hairpins for wedding party on Saturday. Number 5. Help Eben with his spelling words. 6. Clean up bathrooms and then deep clean them. 7. Schedule the following appointments: financial consultant, dentist, Dr. Wang. Start writing an online beauty blog for the website. Get out of debt. Start saving for Evan's college. Go through resumes and call for interviews for new stylists. Fix the floor where Huey sharpened his nails. Claire frustratingly threw her pencil across the counter after number 30 on the list and talked herself down from a panic attack. The to-do list in her head was always so urgent. Claire took a shallow breath and chewed on her thumbnail. She was upset she was still having anxiety after all these years of therapy and meds and yoga. Eben is perfect. The salon is perfect. What is my problem? Not willing to wait until the coffee finished brewing, Claire quickly poured a cup and dropped an ice cube from the freezer into the steaming liquid. Claire loved the feeling of the cool ice cube bouncing off her lips, but eager to indulge in her first sip of the day, she took the ice cube into her mouth and crunched away. Practically chugging, she focused in on one of the many framed pictures of her Granny Cece, after whom the salon was named. The black and white image, torn on one side as if someone had been removed from the scene deliberately, was a time in her grandmother's life that Claire knew nothing about. "I'll tell you one day," Granny told her, time and time again, but not today. The sound of Claire's name was blurted out into the silence of the room, startling her. Claire clutched the notebook to her chest and instantly recognized the voice of Lucy. Walking through the curtain, Claire was caught off guard by the miserable look of her friend. The sweat stains under Lucy's armpits caught Claire's eye before she noticed the black eyeliner smudged down her high cheekbones. Between her damp hair and the rank smell of her body, Lucy was not the spokesperson of hygiene. Lucy's demand that Claire cut her hair off was not all that unusual. It was a red flag for that something bad had happened. "Now what? Everything was great yesterday," Claire said, leading her by the arm from behind to the chair in her station. Lucy said nothing. She stared at herself in the mirror and unbuttoned her blouse so she could breathe. Claire lit a rosemary-scented candle to rid the enclosed space of Lucy's BO. She reached her arm around the wall next to her to turn on the overhead fans, circulating fresh air into the salon. Claire put on her lavender-striped smock and noticed Lucy sat silently, staring at the ground. This scene was all too familiar, and usually Claire would roll her eyes and tell her friend to get a grip. But Lucy looked abnormally beaten down. They had not spent much time together lately since Claire had been busy with the salon and Evan. "Just let me freshen up your makeup and we can get a better idea of what you're looking for a new style," Claire said, almost speaking from a script. Lucy and Claire had been acting out this coping technique for 15 years. Something devastating would happen to Lucy, and her quick fix would be to change the cut and color of her hair. "Okay, so I assume this is about the boss you're fooling around with. So you broke up with him, and what else?" Claire predicted while running her fingers through Lucy's hair. "I never said I broke up with him. I'm just no longer seeing him. And I quit my job." Lucy scratched at the necklace around her damp skin. "Oh, Lucy," Claire sighed in a disgusted and motherly tone. I just can't," Lucy said, shaking her head. "I'm sorry, please just get out your scissors and chop it all off, and I want another color." Claire pulled makeup remover and a cotton ball from her teal and black leather case and turned Lucy from her own reflection in the mirror. "Close your eyes," she barked, as if she was talking to a child who had just broken the rules for the 1,000th time. Lucy's face was still as youthful as it had been when she was 12. Frustration shook Claire out of any sympathetic feelings she might have, and she angrily rustled the combs and clips at her station more loudly than usual. "Here we go again," thought Claire. "I need to start budgeting my time for Lucy's meltdowns. After I take off your makeup, I'm going to go get you some tea, and then we're going to work through this." "Again," Claire scolded. She placed her hand on Lucy's arm and noticed her skin felt like fire. "Okay," Lucy whispered. "Would you like some trash magazines and tea?" Claire asked. "Yes, please, iced tea," Lucy requested. "Lots of ice." "You got it," said Claire. Claire walked to the back of the kitchen. Thankfully, there was only one client in the salon for the next hour. Cracking ice out of the tray, Claire noticed no one had washed the tumblers they used for the water the night before and grabbed a coffee mug instead. Annoying, thought Claire. Gotta talk to Jack about that. Jack, the salon manager, was Claire's significant other, except for the fact that they were not romantically involved. They were friends, colleagues, and co-workers. At one time, they had an opportunity at being intimate, but Claire's anxiety and the fact that she was a single mother got in the way. The dirty dishes would have to wait. Claire had to fix Lucy again. She hated the feeling of being annoyed, but Lucy had become exceedingly more scattered. She was downright flailing. Lucy had left 3, now 4 jobs in 1 year because she was dating or seeing a coworker and they broke up. Too embarrassed to go to the office, Lucy would call in and quit. Claire's sisterly love for Lucy temporarily cut through her irritated mood, and she couldn't help but want to repair her. Wondering when Lucy would finally cave and see a therapist, Claire grabbed the kitchen stepladder and reached around the top of the cabinet to find an old Rolodex with her therapist's business card. After everything calmed down, she would insist yet again that Lucy see someone. Claire brought 2 coffee mugs with tea back to her station. Sorry about the coffee mugs. Apparently my staff can't do dishes around here. That's okay, she said. I can drink tea out of anything. Claire was relieved Lucy's voice was a little more relaxed when she returned. Her eyes were still red and swollen, but at least she looked a bit more calm. Lucy paged through the magazine she gave her and stared at some blonde pixie cuts. Claire glanced over her shoulder and chided her again. Please tell me you are not going to go that short. Do you realize how long you've been working on growing your hair out? Something has to change. I feel like I'm being swallowed by something, that life is being choked out of me, and I'm literally the shell of a person being fueled by caffeine. Claire pulled up a nearby stool and sat close to Lucy, taking her by the hand. As much as she hated Lucy's complete lack of self-worth and responsibility at times, her friend had stepped up on many occasions to help Claire, and she could never forget that. Eben's father, Paul, was an abusive man. It was strange, but every time Claire was hit, Lucy somehow knew and arrived at her apartment to care for her. Once, Lucy even walked in on them in a fight and without hesitation jumped on Paul's back, pushing them both to the ground. When Paul got up, he came at Lucy, fists clenched. "Touch me and I will kill you, fucker," the then flame redhead girl said, which stopped Paul in his tracks. Thankfully, Paul left when Claire announced she was pregnant, but not before he beat her one last time. He told Claire he was sick of her shit and to have fun raising that bastard alone. The last thing she heard him saying was, "You probably cheated on me anyway." Claire hadn't seen him in nearly 7 years and hoped he was dead. Claire didn't always have bad feelings about Paul. He was very gentle when they met, and then over the course of 8 months, he bottled up his feelings day after day until he burst. It was a new Paul by then. It was very Jekyll and Hyde, a fun lover and friend one day, and a controlling, mean prick the next. Claire was convinced he needed professional help and a whole bunch of meds. She researched his symptoms once, and the internet diagnosed him as bipolar. When she suggested he get help, Paul turned violent. Lucy looked at Claire in the mirror, knowing she had disappointed her. But just sitting here with Claire in Cece's salon slowed her constantly running mind. The salon reminded Lucy of home, of a time when she could relax at Claire's house and visit with her best friend's grandmother. The salon was full of old photos of Granny and the scent of lavender, Granny's scent. Inhaling, Lucy closed her eyes as Claire silently removed her makeup and worked on her hair. A cool breeze from overhead wafted past Lucy, and she sat, forcing herself to forget about the last few hours. Reminiscing about Granny always healed her. "I've been thinking about Granny a lot lately," said Lucy, "about what she said to me the last time I saw her before we moved to the city. Remember that day? We were getting ready for prom." Claire listened in silence, working on Lucy's hair as her friend brought back to life that crazy night. "I remember it like it was yesterday," Lucy said. "We spent the afternoon getting ready at your house. I had brown hair then, remember? I felt really sad and figured it was just because it was raining or maybe because we were graduating. Now that I look back, I know I had been in mourning for 6 years but couldn't find a way to let it out. You twisted my new brown hair into tendrils and pinned them to the top of my head with such care and ease. I was so proud of you even then, you know?" Claire listened and separated Lucy's hair into 4 sections, winding each red bundle around her finger and fastening them with a clip. "As long as you were doing someone's hair, life was exciting for you because you were so good at it. Ever since my parents died, I think I lost interest in myself. I loved being your guinea pig, though." Lucy paused and a small smile appeared on her face. "I really wish my mother could have seen me that day. God, did I look like her." Claire nodded in agreement and gave her friend a blunt cut straight across her back, hoping this small change in her appearance would suffice. With darker hair, Lucy resembled her mother more than ever. It was their eyes, their crystal ice blue eyes that defined their beauty, the dark hair framing their piercing look. Claire gently took Lucy's jaw in her hand and tilted her head to check her lines, while her friend continued reminiscing. Our makeovers were always a nice band-aid to help me forget all about my disappointments. It was Uncle Robert that day who got me upset. Lucy sighed and thought about her young uncle and how he'd tried his best raising her after her parents died. Looking back, I feel bad for him. Your 11-year-old niece dumped on you after your sister dies in a car crash? I'm sure he was just waiting for graduation so he could leave and move on with his life. I wanted the adventures I had with Mom and Dad so badly then, which annoyed the hell out of Robert. We argued a lot because I'd never tell him where I was going. He really wasn't ready to be a father. Well, your parents didn't plan on dying, Lucy, Claire reminded her. I was so excited about us going off to college, Lucy said, lost in her own daydream. And I was excited that my mother let me wear apple red lipstick out in public for the first time, Claire laughed, joining her friend in the memory. Lucy smiled and stopped talking for a moment, watching Claire cut her hair, and then continued. I only remember 2 words from the letter Robert wrote to me. I'm leaving. My eyes literally started shaking in their sockets. I remember every feeling. It was as though every emotion I'd ever had was bubbling up inside of me and I was going to explode. And you did, Claire interrupted softly. I panicked, Lucy said, her mind finally admitting out loud how convinced she had been that she was being abandoned. A heaviness filled my body, and all I could hear was a voice inside my head screaming at me, begging me to run. I knew that cliff behind your house was dangerous, but just like with everything else, I didn't care. My mind raced and recalled random events in my life, like my 4th birthday. How weird it was to think about that. My cake fell on the floor, and some boy, Edward, I think laughed at me for crying. Then my first day of 3rd grade. Remember I jumped in line to get on the bus and stepped into what I thought was a small puddle, and it turned out to be a deep pothole. Sammy Richardson, that punk, laughed as I struggled to get myself out. Claire nodded and combed Lucy's grown-out bangs over her eyes. I stopped running, and I finally realized that they were dead. I screamed at them and cursed them for leaving me. Then I sat down in the mud and watched the dirt seep into the hem of my green prom dress. Claire stopped trimming Lucy's hair and gently held her by the shoulders, vividly remembering the events of the night. My dad ran out to find you, Claire added to the story, while Mom and Granny and I sat on the porch waiting. Oh God, I was so worried. We could hear him screaming for you over and over in the dark. The weather was getting really bad, and we could hear the tornado siren go off in the next town. Dad said you were standing on the edge of Bitterton Cliff when he found you. I think I would have jumped, but then I heard him calling my name, said Lucy. He said he was there to help me, and I believed him. You were a mess when Dad came back with you, said Claire. Your hair had melted all around your face, along with your makeup. You looked really scary, just staring out into space. Granny jumped in to help and said you were in shock and told Mom to put some tea on. And I said, who gives a shit about tea? They laughed together, and Claire went back to cutting Lucy's bangs. Granny grabbed me and said, you need to find something to do with your hands, Claire. We need to warm Lucy up. Let's draw her a bath. But you hated baths, so instead I turned on the shower. Lucy continued the story for her. Your mother wrapped me in her robe, and Granny put me in her lap and sat in that large couch in the bathroom. I was in love with that couch, and she whispered in my ear, when you have been hurt for so long, sometimes the only thing you can do is run. You'll stop running eventually. I was standing behind you with the tea and asked Granny if she had ever been hurt that bad, said Claire. Everyone gets hurt, Granny said, but sometimes you get so hurt, it feels better to run away than to stand and feel the hurt in your heart. I sipped the tea a bit and loved that you put ice in it so I could drink it right away, said Lucy. I couldn't move from Granny's lap, so your mother took me into the bathroom and helped me wash. She was so wonderful. That hot water melted the numbness in me, and I felt like I was coming back to life again. My senses were so heightened. I can still smell your mother's shampoo and see the mud and the sand and the blood mixing together at the bottom of the tub as they washed off my body. My ears started to ring, and after your mother finished helping me wash, she told me just to sit in the shower and let the steam warm me up. Lucy looked up, which forced Claire to stop cutting the back of her hair. I heard something in the bathroom when she left, Claire. I've never told anyone this before because I thought I was going crazy at the time. The ringing in my ears turned out to be a humming. A shadow just beyond the shower curtain appeared, no bigger than an apple, and when I pulled the curtain away, there was nothing there. Lucy clasped her hands together as she recalled this memory. I sat back into the stream of water and heard the humming again. Ever so slowly, I brought the curtain back, and perched on the towel rod was a hummingbird. Claire's eyebrow lifted as she sat down on the stool behind her. A hummingbird, Claire. After a few moments of silence, Lucy continued through tear-filled eyes. You might think I'm crazy, but I'm sure it was my mother. In that moment, she was in the bathroom with me. Oh, Lucy, said Claire, hugging her friend. I'm sure it was her. Chapter 3. Claire's salon was different than most. A vintagey space laid out in an old garment factory in a hub of historic Old Town Chicago. A French woman named Mabel had originally set up shop in the building in the 1930s, servicing the elite community of Chicago and commissioned to create designs for boutiques like Marshall Field's. CC's salon specialized in pinup styles and modern spins to the looks of the 1920s, 30s, and 40s. So the history of the building was the perfect canvas for Claire's business vision. Entering CC's salon, one felt transported to a different era. The high ceilings had exposed pipes and tin air ducts. Large pendant lights dangled in between the steel metal beams. Dark wood trimmed everything. The chairs were black leather. They faced antique mirrors propped on antique tool cabinets. A long lavender-colored rug ran through the middle of the floor, leading to the back room. 3 heavy curtains separated the front from the back of the building. With all the amenities of a modern kitchen, Claire was adamant about making her employees feel comfortable and happy. This part of the salon was also very important to Claire as she lived in the flat above and needed convenience on both levels. Claire was a caring boss, and her employees boasted about their jobs to friends. Behind the kitchen was a small living room with 2 comfy chairs, a coffee table, and a television. Beyond the living room was a porch that was converted into a laundry room. The salon even had a fenced yard with a small playhouse and a slide and 2 swings for Eben. The mood of the boutique was upbeat and colorful. The staff stayed true to the vintage look of the salon by purely being themselves. Some of the staff had a harder edge, sporting tattoos and piercings, but many had a more mainstream vintage look. Bright red lips and blunt bangs were typical, along with nylon stockings. The music reflected the 1930s style, but was peppered in with the occasional Indian alt-rock tune. All the employees fit the niche of the salon, everyone but Jack, the manager, who stuck out like a sore thumb. A mix between a corporate wannabe and a scruffy tradesman, he was there only because he loved and believed in Claire. Jack walked into work and found Claire talking to Lucy in the back of the salon. As much as he liked Lucy and loved Claire, he couldn't quite grasp why these 2 women were still friends. Jack immediately regretted feeling any kind of animosity toward Claire's best friend. He knew Lucy had been through hell and back when she lost her parents at a young age, and felt sorry that this adult woman had never fully coped with the loss. He had seen the caring side of Lucy when Claire was pregnant with Eben almost 8 years ago. Jack couldn't believe Lucy actually quit her job to help Claire in the salon while she was on maternity leave, and was even more shocked when Lucy stayed on staff 6 months longer while Claire worked through her postpartum anxiety. Jack stared at his laptop on a makeshift desk on the bar-height tables near the front of the salon, pretending to be lost in thought about work. He strained his ears, trying to hear Claire and Lucy's conversation. Catching her eye, Jack grinned at Claire, and she winked back at him. Jack felt content at this point in his life, but confused at the same time. At 30, he was the PR and marketing manager of CC's Salon. Previously a freelance graphic designer, Jack slowed down his own career when he bumped into a pregnant Claire at Franny's Flapjacks a few blocks down from the street. Hold on, I have to take a drink. Sensing a unique entrepreneurial spirit about her and intrigued by her ideas, he was excited about a marketing challenge he had never experienced, raising a small business from the ground up. Claire agreed she needed someone's help. The salon made waves year after year, not only in Old Town but nationally. It had drawn attention as an inventive model for other run-of-the-mill hair salons. Jack eventually came on staff full-time at CC's. With Claire's knack for bringing a classic era into present day and Jack's unique ability to translate her message for the public, this power couple was on the verge of franchising CC's in New York, Los Angeles, and Paris. The only problem was Jack had been in love with Claire for 8 years, and she'd yet to return her feelings. Once, in the beginning, she allowed her cautious guard down, but just as quickly took her feelings back, claiming she was too screwed up to be part of a couple. Jack craved a cigarette. He quit almost 4 years ago because he knew Claire hated it, but when things got stressful, he cheated a little. I might buy a pack today, Jack thought as he worked on labels for CC's new line of shampoo. The thought of a burning drag excited him enough to bring him out of his seat. He quickly headed out the back door for some air. Breezing by Claire, Jack caught a bit of their conversation, but not enough to give him the details. By the look on Lucy's face in the round antique mirror at Claire's station, he could tell she'd probably quit her job again. Judgment about Lucy's life and her lack of responsible adult behavior easily washed through his mind as he walked out the back door of the salon and sat on a lawn chair on the small patio. The shade of the pergola above him provided some relief from the humid August day. Jack watched a rainbow of colors flickering through the stained glass window in the kitchen and thought about his own situation. Even though CC's was on the verge of exploding, Jack could think of nothing but the stagnant relationship he had with Claire. Fearing rejection, he decided to buy that pack of cigarettes and think about Claire later. He had 7 deadlines looming for the salon, and he needed to get to work. Chapter 4. Lucy could breathe again, her hair cut and styled into a messy, fiery red lob. She knew she stunk and hopped into a cab to take her the 10 blocks home. She listened for a change when Claire suggested she go for help and make an appointment with her therapist, Dr. Wang. As soon as she walked in the door of her apartment, she headed for the shower. A large closet in the bathroom stored Lucy's sundries and linens, and reaching up to grab a new bottle of shampoo, she noticed a brick lining in the wall was chipping away. Lucy poked at the crumbs in the brick with her fingertips, quickly exposing a small hole. Her heart began to race as she had once found an old hammer in the floorboards of the living room, and grabbing tweezers off the sink counter, she scraped at the dusty mortar. Buildings in Chicago were full of secret hiding places, and this was the mini adventure that Lucy desperately needed to break out of her depression. The brick was not a full piece of brick at all, but a seal to a larger hole, and inside the space was a leather notebook. Lucy dusted off the cover, which revealed no title or name at all. The first page was torn and faded, but still readable. Lucy slipped into her chenille robe and sunk down onto the bath mat and started to read the diary. Wednesday, August 8th, 1930. I walked from the 1500 block of Lakeshore Drive at the south end of Lincoln Park to State Street in this heat. The whole way I smelled Stephen on my skin from our night of sex. The humidity consumed my body, so I stopped to rest and contemplate where to go. I couldn't return home, My absence the night before was certainly noticed, and Father would greet me at the door with a swift slap to the face. Questions would have to be answered, like, where were you all night? As I walked, I realized I'd left my purse in Stephen's apartment. My diary was in my clutch, and I'm more miserable about losing my thoughts than I am my virginity. Just this morning, for a moment, life was more than perfect. I showered in a bathroom I did not have to share with 12 other people. Not that I don't like my brothers and sisters, but a 19-year-old girl needs her privacy. I used jojoba oil soap, which left my skin smelling sweet for the first time in my life instead of medicinal. Stephen, slightly arrogant, but he has enough money to be, he's kind enough for me. Our worlds are quite different, as he's the heir to a family who made their wealth selling gunpowder during the Civil War, and I live in old Polonia, packed in a 2-bedroom house with my parents and 12 brothers and sisters. This is the life I've always wanted, married to a man who lives off his inheritance and style. I should be a part of this high society, not the daughter of a poor, drunk Polish immigrant. I realized that walking home from the north side would take at least an hour, and with no purse and no money to take the streetcar home, I knew the only place I could hide was at May's. It's so hot in the city. This heat is enough to make a girl go mad. Not mad enough to go home, though. I prefer the sounds of the hot city to the sounds of Father hitting me and cursing at Mother. I've always wished she would leave him, but now she is so used to it she silently takes a beating, as if it were a daily task, like washing the clothes. When I was in Stephen's fancy apartment, I felt so comfortable, not necessarily with him, but with myself. I was in charge of me for once, and I felt free. My life had finally crossed over to happiness, and as soon as I relaxed in it, the happiness was snatched away. When I got to May's shop, it was closed. I decided if I had to wait for 2 hours for the shop to open to see her, I would have to throw myself into the river. So I knocked on the glass window, shook the doorknob, and yelled until someone heard me. I envy Miss May Dubois. Her parents own the garment factory and tailor shop, and May is the head seamstress. Known throughout the city for unique dress styles, intricate embroidery, and sewing skills, May has a knack for business and often tells me her dreams of opening up her own shop. Her parents paid the money in advance, their whole life savings, in fact, to come to America and start the business May convinced them would give them a living. With the help of her financially savvy brother Peter, May was able to open up the shop and within a year make back the money they'd invested by attracting an upper-class clientele. May's like a tiny brown-haired angel with a French accent. Oh, I told her where I had been and what I'd done, and I don't think she was surprised. May knows my father is a violent bastard, so she suggested I stay with her family in the apartment above their shop, but he would certainly find me there. It's so easy to feel safe with May. Her parents are kind and supportive. Her surroundings are not pathetic like my own. I'm finished with being poor. I want velvet chairs. I want custom dresses that May creates for my shapeless body. I was too proud to admit to May that I had been turned out by Stephen, so I tucked it away to deal with it later. It's embarrassing when your friend says to you, "I know your home life is wretched." It's pathetic that I can't go home for fear of being killed by my out-of-work drunk father. I'm scared for Mother, though, and I have to find out if she's all right. May convinced me to stay with Peter at his apartment for the day instead of her place until I could talk to Mother. Ugh, I wish Father was dead. Signed, C.W. Lucy closed the diary in awe of her discovery. This peek into the life of a desperate young girl 80 years ago distracted her from her current pathetic scene. She walked through her studio apartment with new eyes and wondered what had happened in the walls of her own home. Looking at the faded handwriting in the diary, Lucy couldn't wait to get back to her new friend. Flipping through the delicate pages, she noticed the initials C.W. were at the end of each entry. "Who are you, C.W.?" Lucy thought. Placing the diary on top of her own, Lucy went back to the bathroom to shower. Her thoughts, lost on this stranger, consumed her. She reflected on the sketches in the diary of botanicals and dresses, feeling somehow connected to this woman. Forgetting her recent screw-ups, Lucy saw hope in this story, for a woman who seemed just as scattered as she was. Preparing herself for a day of reading, Lucy smiled as a new adventure started. Her heart beat with a fast and steady pulse of childish enthusiasm that reminded her of the stability she once felt with her mother. Closing her eyes and stepping back into the steady stream of warm water, Lucy sunk back into her childhood. The last memory of her parents, the last touch, the final sound of their voices telling her goodbye, not realizing that goodbye would be the last one. So I'm going to pause there. And we are going to continue on tomorrow. So a lot going on. So does anybody have questions? It's just, I love reading my work. I think it's fun. You know, you create something and then you just like put it out there. But coming back to it, I think it's fun just to read stuff out loud. So that's why I wanted to do this. Adult. It's not really like an adult. What am I saying? It's not really like an adult bedtime story. Because every time you put the word adult on there, it sounds like nasty. Okay. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. Tomorrow we're going to continue on. So Lucy found this diary in the walls of her apartment. She's immediately intrigued, wants to find out more. And it's really a nice distraction from her basically screwing up in her life. So we're going to see what's happening tomorrow. And we'll just go from there. So thank you so much for being here with me and supporting me. Goodness, I love you guys so much. Have a wonderful night, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye.